There we go. Hello.
Morning.
It's Stephen Myles.
Hey!
How you doing?
Morning, world.
How are you?
Well, we had a glorious day in sunny Deal yet again. A sort of slight hint of winter in the air, unfortunately, but other than that,
it's freezing.
Glorious.
It's freezing. You've come dressed for the occasion, Myles. It's
Myles
wonderful.
looks very dapper. I think he's
Myles
going
looks very
racing later.
gangster,
I have
but
to
in a
pretend I know what I'm
classical way.
doing sometimes, I think.
Oh,
Did
you've
you
got
just-
a very nice voice.
Did you just
Myles.
say
Oh,
gangster in a classical way?
That's a nice combination.
Nice one. That's going on
How
Facebook.
true.
That's my tagline.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise.
Well, look, you're here to tell us about this wonderful event you've got coming up, which is
We are.
the Sound of Cutlery.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
So
did this come about?
well, the gallery has been a fan of Steve's work for a long time, and so about a year ago we approached him about doing the show, and it's now going to open next Saturday, The Sound of Cutlery. Steve Thomas and Jim Waugh, a collection of paintings and prints, and the gallery's really proud to be putting the show on, and we've had an amazing
Absolutely.
response so far, and we just thought we'd do everything we can to try and get as many people to know about it and many people to come and see the new
Awesome.
collection of work.
Yeah.
That's quite right. Quite right. It's Linden Hall Gallery, actually. It's in Deal.
Yeah, so the gallery's obviously, in Deal, hence we're on Deal Radio.
Yeah.
St George's Road, Linden Hall Studio. So it opens on the 3rd and it runs until the 25th of November.
So if people come to your exhibition, what do they experience the second they come in the door?
Well, it's a
Brilliance. Genius.
absolute genius.
Oodles of it.
And one of the half of that genius is here with us today, Steve
Oh,
Thomas.
what a lovely intro.
Oh, can't do better than
Hello,
that.
Steve.
Do you know I don't have to pay him a tenner?
Is that
It's
all?
remarkably cheap.
You two are lovely. Oh.
There's one thing I must say. Deal does seem to attract some incredible talent, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
It
It's
does.
Yeah.
This town.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve, your history in art, am I right? Literally goes back to the days when you used to do covers for albums.
Oh, yes.
And
I
Pete,
did.
there's a story
Yeah.
about Pete Frampton somewhere. in your...
I discovered the Herd.
What?
In, the Marquee. I did on a Radio London gig at noon. Yes, in the Marquee. No one was there. It's one of the usual things. All the kids are out doing something else, and the Marquee was packed with me as a record promoter for an American record producer called Steve Rowland, and he produced. Hits. He produced. Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch.
Yeah.
God, I can still say it in the
Wow.
right order.
Yeah.
I think that's
what
like
happens when you get
LGBT
old.
now, isn't it? Yeah. It's a new phrase.
They've shortened it now, yeah. Very sensibly. And PJ Proby, and obviously The Herd, The Family Dog. It went list after list after list of incredible hits that he turned out. And when I left art school at Chelsea as a painter,
Oh, God,
I thought
wow,
it'd be
that's already
fantastic
impressive.
to work, in rock and roll for a bit, because back then, it was rock and roll, and you had to walk around in twos. It was dangerous, and you hadn't any money on you. It was, like bands did then, because everything was in cash. You sent your band up the road for sort of 3-week tour of Burton's in Grimsby, Hull, Fleetwood, Scotland, and they came back with a suitcase full of cash, and of course it attracted a certain amount of villainy in those days, because
Gosh.
it was easier to knock over a roadie than it was doing a sort of a bank van,
Yeah.
or indeed a bank. So it did attract an awful lot of villainy then, and it was great times to be in rock and roll. And there they were, the Herd, belting it out with me standing there. And I felt kind of duty-bound to talk to them, since I was the only one listening. And I saw Peter immediately, the attraction the girls would have to him at the age. He was 16, and I'm afraid I rather ruined Peter Frampton's career by making him face of 68.
Right.
And that dates us all, doesn't it? Well, he wasn't even born then.
Yeah, I was just drinking in my dad's beer glass.
And he wanted to be Wes. He wanted to be Wes Montgomery. He was the great jazz guitarist at that time.
Yes.
And that's all Peter wanted to play. And in fact, the Herd were naturally very gifted musicians and all wanted to play jazz. So of course we took him out of that crap because he's not commercial, no money in that, lads. And I thought I could see Peter being, I used to dress him in Alice Pollock little short motorbike jackets with nothing underneath. I can
almost see the image now. I can remember.
Yeah. Very, very horny. Huge amount of midriff and sort of 16-year-old musculature. And the girls used to rip these jackets off him. Literally in shreds.
Goodness.
Within seconds. gone.
It happens on Deal High Street all the time.
It does actually. Do you notice that? Saturdays is particularly nasty.
Saturdays particularly bad. At the market, watch out.
Next Saturday, that's
Watch
what's going to
out.
happen. So you've got a long and illustrious career in art, and
I have
worked with
yes.
Bieber as well. In
yes,
the
I
past.
designed Big Bieber on Kensington High Street. All of that
Awesome.
with my partner, now down deceased, very sensibly, I've had a golden career. I mean, absolutely unbelievably lucky. But I suppose luck is about using it. You know,
Absolutely.
it's not just giving
Yeah.
it. It's got to actually do something and produce as
Didn't
well.
you say once about your friends saying that you always had an ability to be in the right place at the right time?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah,
you're one of
yeah.
those blessed people.
I feel like that today. to be
Golden.
honest.
Yeah. Oh.
So you've bought
If
all
I
this.
can whisper that over the airwaves.
I didn't hear a word.
Oh, good.
If you whisper, she don't hear anything. So you brought all of this experience, all this to the Linden Hall for this
Well,
particular event.
It's extraordinary how Jim and I were talking the other day. We are very, very different as artists.
Of
That's
course.
the reason that
Yeah.
I thought, Jim, we did a radio programme called Only Artists together.
Yes.
On Deal Pier, in fact, in some sort of gale. And we were introduced at a sort of lunch party, and we got on, and we did this radio show together. And I thought Linden Hall is awfully big just for me, and I was just a bit worried. And I wanted to choose someone who was going to be a foil to me, and I was a foil to them, so
Very
that
good.
there was no kind of overlap whatsoever.
Yeah.
Jim paints exactly like Jim is, which is eccentric, wildly eccentric, spontaneous, very, very funny. He's incredibly quick. He can draw at the speed of lightning. He does some things down here for the Great Lifeboat Association that we have down here, where you pick a record out of our local record store, Smugglers, Smugglers Records, yes, very fine establishment. And during the time it takes to play the chosen track, he will illustrate it for you. You know, it's at a cost of £200.
Is he like painterly and really expressive?
Oh,
is it
terribly expressive.
Elements of realism.
It depends what time of the day it is.
How much coffee have you had?
Right.
Because he paints and changes his style with great alacrity and great skill.
So
he goes from brutalism to fauvism to doing 200 drawings in Indian ink, with the speed of lightning.
Your styles are opposite, but somehow they seem to work.
They work well
incredibly
together.
together.
It's going to be a good unified show. But
How would you describe your style right now? Because artists are evolving as well throughout
It's
their
kind
life,
of
aren't they?
figuration, but only
Figuration,
just.
right.
But really, the figuration is there as a vehicle to carry colour. Colour to me is everything. I know this is odd coming from a man who always dresses in black and lives in a white house, but I actually love colour.
Yes.
And colour evokes mood, it evokes light and atmosphere. And I play music constantly when I'm working. So most of my work is a response to a piece of music or an artist or a time of year or something like
A
that.
little fairy turned up then.
Yes, I wonder whose that was. I wonder if that
That's
was
all gifted
mine.
again.
I think I might turn my phone
That's
off.
all right. This is real radio. It's fine.
This is live.
It's all right.
Can you describe for the listeners, just before we go back to the actual event at the Linden,
Yep.
can you describe for the listeners what your studio gallery is like that you work in?
Oh,
so
I
you
work
step
from
into
home.
it.
I work from home.
Yeah.
I bought. I was very lucky. I came down here about 10 years ago and bought 3 Recs in a row, and I knocked them all into one. So part of it is my studio.
I love
And
that
then,
idea.
so it's sort of a long house. It's ideal if you want to practice your golf,
Yes.
or
A little bit of putting down,
yes,
down
exactly.
the corridor.
Your putting green.
So this is a long, vast space. Is it
yes.
high?
No, because
Is it light?
my studio is high, but the rest of it is very low. Like all deal houses are, they're designed for sort of fishermen and midgets
That's
and
true.
smugglers
Yes.
and people, apparently. Or just a very small race of people. But they're very complete and very nice. It's where I live, work, so I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I can just start.
Oh, yeah, I'm awake every morning at 3 a.m.
You're
are
gonna
you?
be. Don't tell her where you live.
What's your
She'll be
number?
round.
No,
Hello, what's your
Be on
number?
the door. Steve, it's me.
Hello, Steve.
Let me in.
I know you're right.
Let's get Artie together.
It's fine because I'm actually a neighbour of Steve, so I can keep an
Oh,
eye out.
okay, keep
I
that
could
in check.
literally just round the
Exactly.
corner. I
Yeah.
can say, hang on, get around there, Rosie. Missy Lala. So Linden Hall, come on, tell us a bit about the history of Linden Hall.
Well, we opened about 4 years ago, and I suppose our tagline has been trying to show the best of contemporary British art. And so we try and show a range of paintings and prints and sculpture and photography. But certainly, Steve and Jim's show is going to be a highlight of our year this year. I mean, Steve, when we go into the gallery, obviously it's a big white space, but his use of colour will look amazing in there. So stylistically, it's going to look incredible. I've always worked in a family, and my dad kind of raised me on the works of like John Hoyland and Pat Caulfield, Alan Jones, who Steve was taught by.
Steve,
so that's
that's
obviously why we've always been so attracted to what he does.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Again, in the right place at the right time.
Is there any element of installation or immersion in your exhibition?
No, we don't encourage that disgusting behaviour.
We don't do that.
If you want that, you go to Margate. You go to Margate to get that sort of filth.
Get down the Tate modern. All these modern people do all that stuff, love.
But presumably people can come in and have a glass of wine. I mean, that's interactive, isn't it?
That's about as interactive as it is.
That's and Steve loves the wine we provide at the gallery.
Yeah, it's quite. It's amazing what you can get for £3.50 a bottle.
Yeah, awesome.
Those Bulgarians, how they do it, I do not know.
It's all about the visual experience.
Yes.
We find.
What, of the wine?
Yeah.
Pouring.
It's a strange colour purple. It has a distinctive smell that I can't remember what it's from, but it's some sort of cleaning fluid.
Some sort of paint stripper. But every month obviously we put on a new show, and certainly in terms of in terms of our program so far, this show's had some of the most interaction with people.
Oh, how lovely!
I think that people naturally kind of react well to colour and different shapes, and
I think you're right. I think it's a reoccurring theme with art, isn't it? I mean, I'm interested vaguely in photography, and I try to do a bit, and I mostly go black and white and silver tone.
Isn't it odd that
because it's dramatic?
Well, it's dramatic, but isn't it odd that here we are talking about colour in painting, but when it comes to photography, art photography is black and white.
Oh, no, that's
art
interesting.
photography is never colour for some reason.
Oh, that must be
That
why
is just sort of
then.
commercial.
I can't work out why I'm so attracted to that sense of black and white
It's
drama.
because it's dramatic.
Yeah.
It is, It
I think it
sets a tone.
It
allows
captures
you
the soul of something.
Well, it allows you to imagine the colours
I
and
suppose that's
to
true.
be there.
I hadn't thought of
if you
that.
just give it to them, it just becomes a piece of reportage and it becomes a piece of sort of commercial photography. When you've got a piece of emotive black and white photography, you're there with it. You're acting in a sort of symbiotic way, and therefore you are much more involved in it because you're allowed to be involved in it.
Well, your exhibition is called
The Sound of Cutlery.
The
And do you know
Sound of Cutlery. Why?
I have to explain
Yes,
this
please
to
do.
the World Wide Web,
Yes.
an audience of millions.
www.
Exactly. And it's because when Jim was at art school, he used to do this sort of rather surreal dance, as he would, of course, and go out on stage and perform with planks of wood tied to his feet, dressed in a suit, with a mask of Roxy Music Man. What's he called?
Oh, Brian Ferry.
Brian Ferry's mask, and he'd do a tap dance to the sound of falling cutlery. So when it came to what on earth we're going to call the show, we kind of thought for hours, and we kept backwards and forwards with silly ideas, both of us, and some crap ideas and some really quite good ideas which got lost. But eventually I suggested, why don't we just call it The Sound of Cutlery? And
brilliant.
It's got a certain amount of nostalgia for Jim.
Yes.
I think we should actually... Have you got a recording of the falling cutlery we can nick?
I can find one for you.
Can you?
Yeah,
Thanks,
he's
Do you
very
know,
kind.
I knew it was called Sound of Cutlery. I should have had the sound effect.
Oh, he's usually brilliant like that.
Wait a
He
minute.
preempts all that stuff.
I'm sure
can do
you've got one
Ghostbusters.
somewhere. You can see.
Yeah.
That'll do.
Oh, well, we wish you all
I'll
the
tell
very
you
best with
one
this.
thing that
Oh, yeah.
it hasn't actually. He's not very good at selling his own gallery. The
I'm here to tell you, Steve.
the Royal Academy voted Linden Hall in the top 20 of provincial commercial galleries in the UK.
No, seriously, is that right?
It was
absolutely
actually the top 10.
Top 10.
Top 10.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty good,
I need
isn't
to
it?
get round there more often because
gotta
that is
come round.
well cool. I wouldn't have enough trendy outfits though. I'd probably put them all on at
No,
the same
it's
time.
okay.
Just
Yeah.
put a Mac
You
on, you'll be
compete with
fine.
him.
We let
That's
them all
true.
in.
Yeah, that's
no, it's
true.
great. We really enjoy it, and we managed to bring a lot of people in and trying to. It's all about, I think, British art is so focused on a very small pocket of West London at the moment.
Oh.
And if you can just get on the train and come down, it takes an hour and 20 minutes.
Sure.
There's so much exciting stuff happening along the south coastline. You've got the Turner, you've got us and stuff.
Yeah.
He works for South East Rail as well. When he's
Does he?
when
I
he's,
can see you in a uniform.
Yeah, if you go to London Bridge, there's a poster of the gallery there somewhere.
Is there? Nice. Well, a lot of our listeners are, yes, we do have listeners in Deal, but a lot of our listeners are outside of Deal, of course.
Yes,
a lot of London listeners and also a lot
Hello,
of
London.
A lot of America Cacans. So if you're nipping over, make sure you come down and see Linden Hall.
Oh, please do.
But that's the point, isn't it? Now the connectivity to London, you can be in St Pancras in 1:20.
Absolutely.
It's not a massive schlep out of town, is it? And there's so much going on down here.
Not at all. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our gallery clients and gallery visitors, rather than they could go to a similar gallery showing similar stuff in West London, of course, but they can instead go to St Pancras, hour and 20 minutes. They come to us, they look around. They go for a nice lunch, they go for a drink, they get to stay at the Rose.
Yeah.
They've got the whole thing. There's a whole package here.
Well, Deal is London by the Sea, the latest London by the Sea. Yeah, I just made that up.
Is it? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and actually we're adding to that. It's the South East London by the Sea.
That's getting quick.
Yeah.
A little hint and tip there, I think, about property prices about to rise again.
Well, actually, I looked at the property markets, and the South East is the greatest ratio of advancement with property prices. South East, i.e. from London down to here. So there's a catchment that's really taken off. And I think that's a lot to do, obviously, with our fantastic town Deal.
Wow.
Yay!
Do you know what? I was
handy
just going to
hint and
say, we sort of upped the ante there. It was almost like we were cultural. There was a cultural thing going on the radio show. You raised the bar for us this morning. And now we're going to nip straight back into what we normally do, which is just a random bunch of chat and music with a few sound effects thrown in for good measure.
Sound of Cutlery.
Yeah.
Don't forget, opens next week.
We'll be there. And I occasionally bump into Jim, but years ago when I first started out on this wonderful trip to where we are today, me and Jim worked in very similar circles because we were both on the post-alternative comedy scene. So we kind of mooched about together.
Wow.
So it's really weird. When I bumped into him in town, whenever I first moved down here about 3 years ago, previous to that I was over in St Margaret's, and I thought, how strange is that? And then somebody else, Jeff Bell, that I know, and there's a lot of people that are sort of being attracted down to this space.
Yeah.
Really
It's
good, quirky people
intelligentsia
that get it,
of the South East is
The
down
creme
here.
de la creme,
The creme
darling.
de la creme,
Wonderful.
darlings.
I think it's got to be something to do with the fact you can't go through it. You have to go to it.
To it.
That's true.
It
Ooh,
kind
I
of
like that.
moves at its own pace. So you just know that everyone here has come here for a
It's
reason,
like an enclave.
That's what we should do.
or no reason.
Deal.
Or on the run.
The town you can't escape. You can get here, but you can never leave.
I'm not a number.
Yes. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much, Jeff.
No,
for
thank
coming
you for
in.
having
us. Thank you.
And,
I've really enjoyed talking to you
love to
today.
the rest of the world.
Lovely.
We will
yes.
make sure next week we've put it up on the Deal Radio info Facebook group as well. We'll put it up again next Saturday.
Brilliant.
We'll
Thank you
remind
so
people
much.
again.